pulled out of the Chrysler. This engine was used from a 2020 Trackhawk Jeep, if you guys have been following the build. So we're going to be using the oil pan to retain the all-wheel drive system, since there are some small differences compared to a regular Hellcat or red-eye oil pan. I also have to swap over the pickup tube, since the Trackhawk one is different also. After that's done, I will then mount the engine back on the cradle and then continue to work on the harness and accessories and hopefully get this thing running. So now it's time to get the 170 crate off the pallet. The book way to do this, technically, you have to remove the supercharger and you have to mount these special tabs that will allow you to hook up like a chain or whatever to your cherry picker. We've been doing this for years, and I'm telling you, after all these swaps that we've done, a seatbelt or a heavy duty strap will work perfectly and it'll save you so much time. So after that's done, we're going to be swapping over the exhaust manifolds because the Demon 170 ones are way too big and we're going to have clearance issues if we do decide to use those. So we're going to be installing the Trackhawk ones, which should be fine. We've seen some Trackhawks do 1,000 wheel, 1,100 wheel with stock exhaust manifolds, so that shouldn't be an issue. So once that's done, you guys will see us swapping over the exhaust manifolds. So now that the Demon 170 is off the crate, I gotta replace the oil pan real quick, as well as the pickup tube, then get the engine back mounted on the cradle with the transmission, then I'll do the exhaust manifolds. So that was my mistake. I should have checked if I had oil before I dropped the pan, but I was so surprised because when I bought the Hellcat came with no oil inside of it. You had to top it off and break it in. So this thing came with some oil in it. I wasn't sure how much quarts of oil was inside, but I had to go to AutoZone real quick, get some cleanup, and then get back to work. All right, guys, we got the Demon 170 motor installed to the cradle of the Trackhawk. I also replaced the engine mounts with the brackets, and we also replaced the exhaust manifolds. If you can see from the video, the exhaust manifolds off the 170 motor are way too big, so the Trackhawk one should do the job just fine. I'm also going to bag up the old Hellcat motor because it is sold. That one's going out to Arizona. Then we'll continue working on the harness. All right, there she is. Got the engine installed. I didn't install the white harness. The white harness is right over here. We have to bring in the engine and install it one more time because we have to relocate these mounts before it was somewhere like right here. So we backed it up about 1 inch because when we put the core support on, the core support was hitting this housing for the thermostat, and I think I showed that in the last video. So I'm gonna leave it until we drop the motor again, and then I'll install the harness. These clips over here, I cut them from the zip tie because these always break. If you guys done these swaps, then you see how these easily snap off. So I cut them from here, and then all I gotta do is run a zip tie through that hole, and then everything will look nice and clean. Now headers, the reason why I didn't use a Demon headers is because, as you can see, the ones on the Trackhawk route differently. So when we put the Demon ones on, they were hitting the cradle. I don't think it should be any issue running these. They look fine, but these were bulky as hell. Look at that. Compared to that one. Alright, so since we had to back up the motor about 1 inch, we also had to redo the trans mount, and that's what you guys just seen us do, just re-drill 2 holes. Now what we're doing is using the special tool to tell us the angle of the rear diff compared to the transfer case or the transmission. They have to be within the 2 angle mark, so if anything more than that, you're risking breaking the transmission or breaking the rear diff. So as you can see, the rear was about a 5.4, the front is about a 5.8, which is perfect. Alright, so since we're in that 2 angle mark, now we have to make some custom spacers so we can lift the nose up on the rear diff. What I have here is a 3-inch spacer, but we're going to cut it down the middle, make it about 1.5 inches on each side, and then it's going to cover up that gap. So once that's bolted back in there, that nose of that diff is going to go slightly upwards, and it'll give us that perfect measurement that we need. All right, guys. So last night we got the rear end all done. We got the spacers installed. The nose of the rear end is an exact angle where we need it to be. Only thing we have to do is install the rear drive shaft. But before we do that, I wanted to work on the engine harness. For the most part, it was plug and play. All the sensors were compatible with each other, from the Trackhawk harness going to the Demon 170 engine. But there's a few things I wanted to mention. It was pretty interesting to see once I got to it. So first thing is the AC compressor. I had to order a new one from the dealer because the Trackhawk one wasn't going to work. The position of the AC lines fit differently than the Trackhawk. Than the Charger AC lines is what we're using in the car. The Trackhawk AC lines are way too long, so there's no way I can make those work. So we're using Charger AC lines. So in order to do that, I had to use a Charger AC compressor. Only thing I changed was the pigtail for the AC compressor clutch, which is this thing where I'm pointing to. The harness that we're using is off a Trackhawk, but the pigtail that goes to the compressor was different. Only two wires was a ground and then a positive, which is the white one. So it was really easy, just 2 pins, had to redo them, and then that was that. But now I want to show you something that was pretty cool. As soon as you get back there, I got the AC compressor done, as you can see. I got the accessory belt installed. I got the alternator installed from the Trackhawk, which bolts in directly to the Demon engine. Right here, you see everything is plugged in, all the coils. I even put on the engine covers, so all the fuel system stuff is done. So this is what I want to talk about. This plug over here is the fuel pressure sensor for the Demon 170, right? This connector is the first connector that I see in this type of style. It has 3 wires. Now I want to show you guys the diagram, so you know what we're looking at. So this is the diagram for that connector. There's 3 pins. Pin number 1 is a fuel pressure signal. Pin number 2 is sensor ground, and pin number 3 is a 5-volt supply. This schematic is off the Demon 170, right? Now, if I show you this thing, this over here, I'm not sure if you see that plug, but this over here is the fuel compensation quality sensor. This is what tells the Demon 170, hey, this is how much ethanol level we have in this fuel. Adjust the power level to such and such, which is like really cool to see. Obviously, the Trackhawk doesn't have that, but I was able to find the schematics for it, and here it is. There's also 3 pins. Pin number 1 is the fuel quality sensor, which goes to pin number 59 on the C2 connector for the PCM. But the Trackhawk doesn't have that. The Trackhawk pin number 59 C2 is a blank pin. There's nothing in there. So what I did was I took a pin and I plugged it into the C2 connector. So what I'm thinking is if I wire it up, so we got the C2, which is done. It takes a ground on pin number 2, so I can ground it wherever. And the ASD relay control is what goes to all the pigtails for the coils. So I was able to pull a wire from there. So by the time you guys see this video, I got that connector to work. I'm hoping that when we get into the tuning part of it, I could turn on that sensor and the car can adjust the power level according to the fuel level or fuel quality that's in the car. I know it sounds really confusing, but that's why I've been gone for so long. I just wanted to make sure I'm doing this correctly. And if it doesn't work, then we'll just tune around it. But if it does work, then this car will operate just like how a Demon 170 works, which is going to be crazy. So next thing I want to show you is the plug. Well, that's a plug for the fuel pressure sensor. This plug over here is for the fuel pressure sensor off a Trackhawk, which looks like this. Literally same thing. Same colors, same 3 pins. First pin you got is the fuel pressure signal. The sensor ground is pin number 2. And then pin number 3 is a 5-volt supply. Literally the same thing off the Demon 170, which I just showed you. They're just swapped around. So this one goes 2, 3, 1. The other one goes 1, 2, 3. So if you wire them color to color, then that fuel pressure sensor should work with the new pigtail. Alright, so I got the wiring harness done. I had to step out for a second to go pick up the silencer. This is the part that goes on the firewall that kind of like keeps the heat out from the engine bay. So the old one was all like chewed up, so I ordered a new one and it just came in today. So once we install this, we can actually drop in the motor and it's gonna stay there because the trans tunnel's done, and I'll show you guys how that looks. once I walk back in there. Alright guys, so here's before we got the trans tunnel painted, and I forgot to record it after, but I'll show you how it looks once we got the motor back in there. But this is the trans tunnel. This is all the space that we needed to fabricate to fit the transfer case. So all this stuff you see over here, this is the bulge that right over there, that is where the transfer case sits. Now this part over here where you see my mouse is reinforced steel, so we use like really thick gauge steel because that's where the drive shaft goes. And if God forbid if that drive shaft was to break, we wanted to make sure that's some pretty good steel that it wouldn't go through the floor and hurt somebody. So the white stuff you see over here is seam sealer. We waited for that to dry. We sprayed it with undercoat, and the thing looks literally like an OEM cut. And I forgot to record after, but you guys will see it once the engine is put back in there and how it looks. All right, now the engine is ready for install. I got the 2 pigtails all wired up, the fuel pressure sensor and the fuel quality sensor. So there is the fuel pressure sensor. Got it all bundled up. And then this one over here is the quality sensor that I told you about. So I made my own pigtail for it. I got it grounded. I got the 5-volt supply, and also got the ASD control on there. And like I said, we're gonna try to control it through the tune and hopefully switch it on so it can work.